Greetings, listeners of the People's Republic of Podcast. Yo ho ho, a Merry Christmas, and what better way to spend Christmas than depressive talks about migration and totally controversial issues and problems. That's the way how we celebrate it in Latvia. You're all getting too merry. Time to bring in some cold from the Eastern Europe, and Central Europe this time too. Because what we have here is Travis J. Dow, known for, well, a bajillion of podcasts, most notably Bohemican, I suppose. But yeah, he's here, and we're gonna talk about European Union issues. Again, mostly European Union issues, because I'm not very well informed about America, but hey, we have Travis from California. So, yeah, hi Travis, maybe tell about yourself to those few people who do not know yet.
Yeah, hey, good to finally be on this show. Yeah, we've known each other for years, obviously, because I do Bohemican with Pete Coleman, and that's like Central Eastern European history and culture, and a lot. So it was one of the Warsaw Pact countries, so it has some communist history in common with like the eastern border. And then I do the history of Germany, which, again, I haven't talked that much about East Germany, but yeah, that's also European history. And then myself, I lived 10 years in Germany, 10 years in Prague in the Czech Republic, and now I'm back in California. So, and we'll see why that's important at some point here in this episode, but yeah.
We'll manage with this. I visited Germany this year too, in October, for the first time ever. And I was really, really stunned because, you know, my host, he told me, well, can you tell where East Germany starts? And I'm like, yeah, there, where Khrushchevkas are.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy to tell where East Berlin is. And, well, for starters, Riga isn't as diverse a city as Berlin, obviously. And in Berlin, you know, if you read the extremely right-wing newspapers, then you think that, you know, every place with a lot of migration is a hellhole. But then you go to Berlin and understand that no, it's not.
I love Berlin.
It actually works. You can buy Gemüse kebab and then currywurst, and then you only eat snack food.
That's right. You really were there, yeah. Currywurst is probably and Döner, yeah. Gemüse kebab.
Yep. Alice was almost killed by a tree. We went there when the huge storm hit.
Oh wow!
That was weird. But see, I invited Travis to this episode because Travis is extremely radical in his views about borders and stuff. But we'll get to that later. Well, you've told me that in Facebook chats. See, my views are like, a lot of people are like confused about the refugee crisis and about migration in general. Everyone's afraid of terrorism. That's kind of nonsense because, you know, if you look at actual crime data, then the crimes committed by migrants are negligible in literally every country they move in. But I wanted to look at some non-racist arguments, both against the migration and for migration. For example, and they're kind of interconnected. And I want Travis to answer some of these questions here, because in Latvia, when we joined the EU, like, we were the economic migrants. We were, when the Schengen zone opened and we could work everywhere, what was it in total? 150,000 of Latvian people in general moved abroad to work in Ireland and UK mostly.
Yeah.
And as seeing as Latvia is the country of 2 million, that's a pretty much of, like, a lot of people. And, you know, we, for the most part of our existence here in the EU, have been the filthy economic migrants, so to speak. Now, the problems that caused in Latvia was the fact that now we have a declining population. So, from one side, like, active migration would really help Latvia, specifically, because, you know, we need people. Secondly, if like, we have a huge Russian minority who are often very aggressive, very pro-Putin, and only watch Russian media, and, you know, that's an issue in Eastern European countries. If we would, for example, have, like, say, 20,000 Syrians here, then, you know, Russians couldn't claim anymore that they're the prominent minority, and then, you know, the pro-Putinist impact would also be lessened. Those are the good things.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
The bad things about migration here, at least from Latvian perspective, are the fact that when people migrate away from your country, that hurts your country. Because we were the country from which the migrants went to get a better life, but that hurt our own economy. So, you know, freedom of movement might hurt might cause kind of this chain reaction where, you know, life's pretty bad in this one place, this one poor place, so people move away from there, which causes even deeper recession, which causes even more people to move, and that causes a death spiral if you let it get out of control. Now we've stabilized because we had a lot of economic growth, but I think that that actually can cause problems to underdeveloped countries in a way.
There's an equilibrium somewhere. I mean, no, you're right, but wouldn't you want to, if things are really bad where you are, don't you want the freedom to be able to leave?
Of course I do, but I just think it's kind of a double-edged sword because, you know, if you leave, then you're sort of responsible for. I
instantly think of like East Germany or you know, the Czechoslovakia, where you couldn't leave because, and you know, life kind of sucked and you couldn't leave. I mean, it's just that's the way it is. If it's better somewhere else, yeah, no, but that's right. I think if you talk about the cons of immigration or migration,
no, this is kind of the only kind of sane con.
Well, I think it's always like, what are you afraid of? Because I think it's like nothing really bad happened. Maybe short term, if 150,000 people left, you know, that's kind of crazy. But also, are they gone forever, or did they move to Ireland and the UK, and then will they retire in Latvia? And I don't know the answer to those questions really, or I don't know. You know, it's probably different case by case, but. Like Czechs like to come back. You know, they might leave for 10 years or 5 years, but then they kind of come back and buy property. And long term, that means there might be more money in Latvia. That's hard to say. I don't want to say that that's always true, but
another interesting aspect of this is that some of them come back, but some of them don't. Because an interesting side effect from this, some of this side effect was the fact that people who left, they didn't have jobs here. They wanted a better life. And a lot of them didn't have any quality education due to the Soviet era. A lot of them were also ethnic Russians who didn't learn to speak Latvian, and they didn't want to speak Latvian here. They just ignored everything, and a lot of them were also involved in organized crime. So after this migration wave, yes, we lost a lot of our population, but our crime rate actually went down, which is also kind of an interesting aspect here. Now, why people are afraid of, like, letting more people in our country when we could take them is an Eastern European specific thing because, you know, we just got our country back and a lot of people, which is sort of a racist point which I want to tackle here because a lot of people are afraid of migration.
I know this
because they're
I can explain that to you from the Czech point of view. Okay, and I'll tell you.
Finish my sentence quickly here.
Okay,
those guys are afraid that, you know, evil Muslims might come in and then we will not be able to celebrate Christmas. But now I want to quote Travis when I complained about Halloween, and he has a good point here. When you have a bunch of migrants in multicultural society, it doesn't mean that one culture wins and another loses. The real thing, how it should work, is that you celebrate everything. Like, you invite the Muslim kids to your Christmas party, and then you celebrate criminal. Take the best stuff and celebrate everything together.
Sure.
That's how it should work. Now,
these are, you know, a lot of those are religious holidays. None of us are really that religious these days that we're like, oh, we can't, you know, if we put up a Christmas tree, we might as well do something for Ramadan or you know, Hanukkah. Like that wouldn't bother me at all. Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
I just think diversity always means more parties, more booze. Oh, we get to celebrate Halloween now too. You know, that's cool. How about Carnival also? And you know, Dia de los Muertos the next day. Just keep it going. You know, why not? Hey,
the most interesting part here, at least for me here in Latvia, is like I'm a Lutheran myself. Because I come from a long line of Lutherans, and my grandpa was a preacher who owned a pub. But the thing is that a lot of the arguments used by the ultra-conservatives here in Latvia, at least, is the fact that, oh no, we have this traditional Christian culture. And then I look at my history of my country, understand that, you know what, we were targets of a crusade. We still celebrate our pagan holidays in June.
Yeah.
Traditional and Christian are two things that are not Latvian, like, at all. We're traditionally very pagan. We use our pagan symbols everywhere. We celebrate our pagan holidays. They've commercialized terribly and lost their original meaning, of course. But since when did we become traditionally Christian? Because we're not. We're the crazy
exactly. I mean, what does tradition mean? I mean, everybody kind of has this fake memory of Christmas or whatever in their mind, I think. Like everybody has some perfect Christmas that they remember with their parents. And maybe that really happened when you were kids. Maybe most people never had that. I don't know. But the fact is that if you really want to celebrate pagan traditions that bring them back, I think that's great. You know, I mean, the point is that if you have the freedom to do what you want, to celebrate things the way you want to celebrate, you can make it important for you personally and your family. You can say, you know what? We're going to bring back the old pagan Latvian thing. And maybe that's something that would have been harder to do in communism or harder to do in, strict Lutheran days.
That was prohibited because the
Right.
the 24th of June, that is the biggest national holiday in
Yeah.
Latvia. And
So
we
that's
celebrate
why
that
I
and
say,
Christmas.
hey, you should, take a chance with Halloween. Yeah, okay, it's commercialized, of course it is. Or I mean, Christmas in America is super commercial, even with compared to like Czech Republic or Germany. But still, it is what your family makes it. You know, it's still probably a big family event or a family dinner. The Christmas tree, no matter how kitschy it is, it still means something. Because you give it meaning. So the point is, if you're forced to follow some holidays or not follow other holidays, then it's kind of like, okay, well, I celebrate Christmas because I have to, because I can't celebrate Ramadan.
And then you start hating Christmas.
Exactly. Yeah, and I did have that period where I kind of like rebelled. Like I was raised religiously, and I was just like, you know what, this sucks because like it doesn't really mean anything, to me or to my family. So
the edgy period when you listened to My Chemical Romance and thought it was rebellious.
Yeah, you're like, holidays, that's for suckers. No, but now it's kind of, I think the more I learn about other cultures' holidays, the more I'm like, oh, that's, what now all my colleagues are from India, for example. So, or a lot of them are like East Asian. So it's like, well, why don't we do that? That sounds like a lot of fun. Can we do that in the office? Like, why don't we have that day off,
By the way,
I never see a problem. And of course, Halloween and Christmas are commercial, but it is what you make of it. The Indian holidays in India are also commercial. But, if it has meaning to them and they bring it over and they're happy on that day and they have, throw colors in each other's face or whatever, that sounds like a lot of fun. Why not? So
I don't know. I think a lot of people are just, everywhere in the world afraid that
they're scared.
They're really scared.
That's always it. Yep.
That is the fact that really angers
the
me
war
a
on
lot
Christmas,
because-
where they're gonna ban. If enough Muslims come in, they're gonna ban Christmas. What? First of all, no, they're not. And if enough Muslims come in, maybe we'll get Ramadan as a holiday. You guys, that's another holiday. Another day we'll get off work. What's wrong with you people? Like that's,
by the way,
better food. We'll get Syrian food. Are you like? Have you had or like let's say Middle Eastern food like Jordanian or whatever, even just a little bit more if they're right next to Turkey, a little bit more Turkish food. That's all going to be a good thing. And Latvian food wouldn't go away. If anything, Latvian food would just get better because it just have more influence.
Do you know why this argument about losing celebration and Christmas being prohibited is especially silly in Latvia? Because we celebrate Christmas twice per year anyways, once for Catholics and Lutherans and once for the Orthodox people.
Yep.
We have 2 Christmas and 2 Easters per year.
2 Easters
already.
Too. I never thought about that. But yeah, the 2 Christmases, yeah. Yep.
It's like we already have that, and like in Latvia it works like this: if you're depending on your religious beliefs, you can pick. You don't get both days off. Sadly.
Okay.
You can pick one of these dates off.
I can. What I wanted to say earlier. Let me say that one thing is that I understand the fear of this a little bit more from the Czech point of view, and I think therefore the Latvian point of view than let's say German or American. Okay. And when I moved to Czech Republic, I kind of understood like people wanted people to speak Czech. They were really and Czech is really hard to learn. I don't know if Latvian, I assume Latvian is easier maybe, but it might be about the same.
Really.
Yeah. And like Russian would be easier than Czech. Polish is easier than Slovak is easier than Czech. Like Czech is actually notoriously hard to learn. But the thing is that that's what they had. And for 300 years, they were under like Austria-Hungary. Slovaks were under, Hungarian influence and discrimination for hundreds of years. The Slovak was not taught in schools, and Czechs finally got their rights. And then immediately when they got independence, like a decade later, the Nazis came and did it even worse, started killing people. And then the communists came and forced everyone to learn Russian in school. And Czech does not have a Russian alphabet. It uses the Latin alphabet. So, you know, they all had to learn the Russian alphabet and speak Russian, when Germany's right next door, and, you know, but they're the enemy, and, you know, history was taught funny, you know, kind of propaganda purposes. And that they dealt with that for 40 years. Okay. Now, finally, 1991, they finally get their independence, and they just want to protect their culture. They finally can, and that's what they want to do. And there was a large minority that was anti-EU, for instance, because and Czechs still don't have the euro. They still have the Czech crown. All the countries around them have the euro, and part of that is like, you know, we never had our own currency. They were using like Austrian Kronen and Groschen, and then, you know, Reichsmark, and then you know, communist state issued, like not free market Czech crowns and communist age. And finally they're like, you know what, we can have our own currency. Let's and so they still don't have the euro. In their case, it's easy to defend that, or to say like, they for hundreds of years they were not independent. Now they have their freedom. They want to stop immigration from the East, like Ukraine and Russia, because they've had that for the last 2 generations, and they've had enough. They're like, now we're free. We don't need to do that.
Totally our story here in Latvia.
And in Latvia is even worse. And now here's the thing: I'm still against it, or I still don't think it's so black and white.
Of course it isn't, but you know,
but Latvia is. There is a real danger that if you opened up all the borders and let anybody that wanted to come in, Ukraine is a poor country, and Belarus and Russia itself those are all like economically, they would gain by going to places like Riga or Prague or even, you know, Poland. And if you open those borders, and they know that, and it's easy to learn the language, you guys, you know, at least the previous generation, they all had to learn Russian in school. I think you had Russian in school still.
Oh yes, we do.
Yeah. So, you know, it's easy for them to come, and they're like, oh, hey, easy borders. And I mean, so I got my permanent residency in the Czech Republic. And when I just taking the Czech test, it was me in a room of, you know, 25 Ukrainians, probably. It was just like all of them, everybody that tries to get into Prague, you know, 90% are Eastern Europe, like Eastern Europeans, Ukraine and Russia and so forth, or Kazakh, and, you know, some of those countries. Uzbekis, whatever. But it's hardly any, or it's not so many Germans. Well, I mean, they're EU anyways now. But, you know, I was the only American. There's not so many Australians or people. There's a couple, but when they try, they're just let in. It's the closed borders are towards countries where if you let every Russian come in, and if you let every Russian that wanted a citizenship be a citizen, then the next elections would take place in Russian. In the Russian language, you know what I mean? Like, there would not be Latvian spoken anymore tomorrow. How many Latvians are there? 2 million? You know,
about 2 million, yeah.
You would have 4 million Russians come in the next day. Okay, now I understand that. On the other hand, and that's hard to have that conversation with Czechs, because they're so proud of their culture, and it is fragile. So the fear, in some sense, is real, but what you're reading about in the media is not 4 million Russians. It's, you know, 10,000 Syrians more, or 10,000 Russians a year more, or something like that. And the answer is usually, yes, your country could afford it. Most people that come in, they want to integrate. Russians is a unique case, because there's such a big country, such a big culture right next door to you. And, you know, Czechs too, and all that. It's a unique situation. But like, if 10,000 Frenchmen or Brits wanted to come into Riga or Latvia next year, probably Latvians would say, oh, okay. You know, hopefully some of them are university educated and, you know, have skills and all that. And it wouldn't be a problem. So it is, when people talk about immigration, I guess is my point, is it's fear driven. you know.
Of course. I mean, over
you know,
here,
you don't
people
want,
like,
and you do have a history. You don't want
Yeah.
to be.
But-
The idea of pan-Slavism, the pan-Slavic movement, died because of the Soviet Union. You know, the Soviets loved that idea, like, oh yes, we all become the same, you know, Slavic country, and Czechs were like, actually, no, that sounds like Austria-Hungary again. You know, we don't want. We actually no, we want to be independent. You know.
I can understand
So-
that, but sometimes, you know, this defensive attitude, of course, like, I can understand when we talk about, like, doubling our population when like, Russians come in, because right now in Russia, and people don't get it, because in about 2007, just, you know,
Yeah.
right after we joined the EU,
Yeah.
our quality of life here in the Baltics and in Russia was about the same. Right now, on average, like, a person making 40,000 rubles and living in Moscow is considered ridiculously rich, like upper middle class. Do you know how much 40,000 rubles are?
No, I'm not even sure.
That is
Yeah.
567
Okay.
euros.
Yeah.
That is less than I make from my podcast.
Yeah, I've been to the
And,
Ukraine,
it's like-
and we asked them, like, hey, have you been to Prague? And they were like, Prague? You know, we might as well have said like Paris or New York. It was like, oh no. And then we found out probably the average good salary for that town in Ukraine was like 200 euros, maybe a month. That, you know,
Yeah,
a
I
good
mean,
salary.
there are people in Russia whose like pensions from the government are about 100 euros.
Yeah.
And you know, you might think prices will equal that out. They don't, because due to the weird rules of Russia, sure, like pasta is cheaper and potatoes are cheaper, but I did an episode on when I compared Soviet economy to Russian economy, and due to the way how their extra mega corruption system works, for example, their meat and cheese, like products which are essential for us,
Right.
they actually they cost more in Russia on average than in Latvia. And by the way, also this means in Czech Republic, because due to my stupid government, which I like to yell at, due to my stupid government, Latvian food prices are amongst the most expensive food prices in Europe. Our food prices are way more expensive than what the Germans pay. No, seriously.
Is that
Latvian street food?
I wonder why that is. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Because
our clothing,
Czechs pay.
our
that's
clothing is
funny.
more
Yeah.
expensive than Germany.
It's funny. It's funny you
Our
say that
TVs
because
and stuff.
Czechs pay more for eggs than Poles, and they pay more for clothes than Germans. And it's even the same stores. If you go to Dresden and you go into a Zara or H&M or whatever, it's cheaper than if you go to the same place in Prague. And now that you say that, I'm like, that's interesting, because I wonder if they're subsidizing like either farmers, so they say, okay, no EU milk or no EU. No, that can't be, but no EU eggs. Like Czech Republic said, even though Poland's EU, we don't want eggs from Poland. They're treated inhumane or something, and they just banned it, making eggs more expensive. And that way they protected Czech farmers. So I think, you know, there could be some of that. I'm wondering. I didn't know that about Latvia too. Like,
because our food prices and clothing prices on, like, you know, there's this rate, you know, salary versus prices, and our food prices and clothing prices are like ridiculously expensive. Because there are friends of mine who just buy Ryanair tickets to Köln for like 38 euros there and back again, like the cheapest class, cheapest airplane. Buy a bunch of clothes, like a full suitcase, then come back, and it's cheaper for them than to buy them here, because at some point, German clothing, like in the same H&Ms, is about 40% lower than Latvian. 40%. Same goes for
that's
like
really
TVs
weird.
and stuff.
Yeah,
And that is why, for example, we don't have gaming consoles in Latvia, because average Latvian salary is 700 euros.
Yeah.
About 750
like
euros.
Apple is probably not so popular among Latvians. Apple was not a Czech brand, really. Well, because Apple was more expensive than it is here in the States, and then salaries are less. So it's like, why? You know, why? Yeah, it didn't make any sense. If you look at the same PC with the same CPU, it would just be a good chunk, like 40% cheaper. So why would anybody buy a MacBook Pro or anything? Yeah,
that is one thing that I'm really fighting for like open borders, because, you know, there are these in Latvian they're called akcijas nodoklis, the tax they put on like cigarettes and
special
alcohol
tariffs
and
for special products.
Special tariffs, yeah.
Yeah.
In Latvia they apply that to coffee. I found that out. Apparently, our coffee has the same like tax added to that as cigarettes and alcohol, but those special tariff tax, that's a crime. That is my gripe about open borders, because, you know, the same radicals who said that, oh no, the 730 Syrian migrants that we had to take in, who would totally ruin our culture because they're like, 730 of them? Oh no, so many, because that's absurd, okay? That I don't agree with. By the way, out of those that we took, which is the interesting part, those who were sent to Latvia, out of those 730, after a year, only one remained. So kind of the problem solved itself, because our country's government is so incompetent, and we don't have as much welfare as other countries, that every Syrian refugee that we took in, they left voluntarily for Sweden or Germany.
Yeah, they moved on.
We have one dude left who married here, became a doctor in a hospital, and now is a member of our parliament. Because he got citizenship too.
Yeah, I mean, income tax was started to pay for war, and then they just kept it. It depends on what it's going to exactly. I don't mind even if it's like, okay, you can tax my coffee if it's helping orphans directly. I don't know, like that's fine. But
I'm against these kind of special tariffs and value-added tax and sales tax.
I was annoyed many times in Germany because I couldn't get certain things, or I mean, okay, if it was under communism and you just couldn't get certain things because the government didn't want to compete with other countries, I think in Czech Republic a pair of Levi's is still over $100. I could be wrong now, but here it's like 30. It's $30 for a pair of pants.
Yeah. See, the thing about that is that, income tax is a percentage of what you make. So, like, the more you make, the more you pay in taxes. By the way, Latvia doesn't have a progressive income tax, which is terrible. But income tax is usually progressive.
Yeah.
Income tax is usually progressive. Now, these value-added taxes and all the taxes applied on consumer goods, they're inherently regressive because, poor people spend a larger percentage of their income on stuff that's taxed by that than rich people invest their money.
Luxury
so that's a regressive tax.
But luxury tax just plain doesn't work. Or like an open, blatant luxury tax. Just like historically, then people will just stop buying yachts and anything that's considered like, okay, we just won't buy any more diamonds or whatever. So, but ideally you just say, okay, I'll tax the things that wealthy people buy. Or you tax bad things. Like, okay, I'm going to tax gambling, alcohol, cigarettes. That's fine. Coffee to me is like a basic food group. So yeah, I can understand why you'd get upset there. But
we now have a podcaster in Dark Myths. And our own Dark Myths, the guy from Not Alone podcast, by the way, go check it out. It's great. It's a paranormal podcast. Sam Fredrickson. He does not drink coffee. I want to expose him as an alien spy and activate the XCOM project now.
I don't know. I took a DNA test. And, to figure out like your ancestry and, if you have any risks to like genetically. And that it actually told me like, you drink a shit ton of coffee, don't you? And I'm like, yes, I do. How did you know? Like, it's genetic. Like I drink a lot of coffee and I found out it's in my DNA. Like, wow. It's pre-fated.
I think it's professional mostly because I went to this journalist convention. So I went to this seminary created by the EU. Instructions on how to combat radicalism on the internet, how to separate fake news from real news, and there's a lecture. There's some American guy who's telling all this information, and then he announces a coffee break. But we're all here Eastern European Latvians. So in the coffee break, he says, and those who want to speak, maybe, you can stay in the room. And then everybody just goes up, gets their coffee and goes out to smoke. Everyone.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, do you all smoke?
Yeah.
Like zero response from everyone because everyone's just rushing for the coffee machine and then going out for cigarettes.
It was like, yep, sorry.
It's kind of weird. Yep. But yeah, we kind of weird off the main topic. I want to talk about, really sad, because we've been talking about rational, reasonable arguments both for and against migration. I want to talk about fucking racist scumbags.
What do you want to get to? What's the crazy?
I want to get to racist scumbags.
What's the crazy part?
Because I don't understand those guys.
Earlier, I think I explained, why Czechs or Latvians could be kind of defensive or a little bit nationalistic,
Yes,
because
that is a valid.
now, on the
That is
other
a valid
hand,
argument, but then there's
yeah,
racist
like
etiquette,
seriously, is
which I
every,
hate.
like, I've been in bars or, you know, had conversations in bars where I just, in the end, I had to leave because the Czech person I was talking to was totally indoctrinated with the Russian propaganda growing up, like, and he just had a totally skewed view of history, and everything was just different in his mind. And I was like, you know what? If that's what a Czech person is, he doesn't deserve to be protected. I think his culture should be lost because he's a horrible human being. Like, they were just, you know, completely racist and xenophobic and didn't want anybody to come in. And, you know, everybody had to speak Czech. You know, he didn't even speak English, you know, it's kind of that kind of person. And I think, okay, those people, and I've met those.
They've forgotten the railroad signs, like the signs on the stores in Austria, which when they arrived in their smuggled in Levi jeans said, "Czechs, go steal at your own place.
Yeah,
Czechs, go home." They've forgotten that experience.
So, I mean, but those people exist in every culture. Those people exist in Germany, and, you know, just total idiots. In Germany, they're kind of scarier to me because they're Nazis. They're like AfD, you know, just like neo-Nazis. And like, the fact that that's made a comeback and that there's Nazis in parliament in Germany again is just crazy to me. But so that's kind of scarier. But that definitely exists in the US too. You know, a group of those people are responsible for, you know, Trump becoming president. Probably the worst thing that's ever happened in, you know, I don't know, the last 100 years as far as the White House. And
well, Russia has national.
Yeah.
Bolsheviks
And Russia,
anti-fascists.
that fear is encouraged. Okay, but that part of the population that is already xenophobic, that, you know, Russia prints that in the newspapers. Like, that's mainstream. You know, that craziness that I met in a bar, or, you know, you have a story of like this one crazy person that, you know, rants against Muslims, or, you know, Russia prints that in the newspapers. Like, that's how they are. That's how Putin is. He wants that. But that's the thing. There's just a subset of idiots that you can, you know, don't feed the trolls, I guess is the point, is you can just ignore those people. You know, there's just conversations where I just had to leave because they're like, there's just nothing I can tell him. You know, they believe in lizard people or flat earth theory or chemtrails. They're just so off the deep end. You can't really, there is no basis of fact or basis of truth that you can, like,
dude,
you know,
I built my own theory.
You know,
I built my own theory. I have a flat moon theory.
You know, I don't.
Yes.
I just, like, it's such a waste of time to, like, you know, deal with like tinfoil hat people that I've just kind of given up. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, I got better things to do. I'm going to go for a motorcycle ride, or, but in the past, yeah, I'd try to, you know, enlighten, educate, like, come on, you know, like, but what about this? What about? And I think it's unfortunate that, I guess it's, you know, what do you want to blame? Education? Is it, you know, did they just not learn the same things that we learned, or did they not have read the same books, or have the same teachers or the same parents? I don't know, you know, but I find that they're not the majority of people anywhere you go. The majority of people, if you're in Latvia or Czech Republic, even probably in Moscow, honestly, you know, definitely in the Ukraine, the majority of people are people that are truth seeking. They want to know they don't want to believe lies or fake stuff. No one consciously says, I'm going to believe propaganda, you know. So, you know, everybody, you know, people are kind of open-minded to some degree to listen to what you're saying. If they're totally brainwashed and they say, okay, all Europeans are evil or all Americans are evil, then there's probably nothing I can say, you know. But in my travels, I think, you know, generally what I'm saying is the majority of people are not xenophobic. The majority of people are not fearful of a terrorist attack. You know, a terrorist attack is...
Depending on where you
are. I mean, I've been to Israel and I wasn't fearful. I've been to Africa. I landed in Nairobi the same day as the Nairobi mall shooting. I drove right by it the next day while it was still happening. I'm not those, like, statistically speaking, that'll never happen to me. Like in Israel, we heard shooting, you know, then we just turn on CNN and like, okay, they're 11 kilometers away, or, you know, oh, they're getting closer, let's move. You know, we drove into the West Bank and you drive by like blown up tourist buses and everything. No, my point is, statistically, you're still stupid to be afraid of those things. fear cannot rule. You know, if you want to go to a cafe in Tel Aviv, go to a cafe in Tel Aviv. Like, that's not that just can't rule your life. That how sad is that you're afraid of, you know, that someone would be afraid of a couple of like 700 Syrians more. That's just like, I pity those people. That's so sad, you know, like.
Yeah, it's like this. Like they live in constant fear of the fact that someone will hurt them. But that's again, I think this comes also those aggressive Czech people, the same like.
Oh,
people
by
here
the
in
way,
Latvia.
can I make it?
I can understand protecting. I can understand
for one thing right now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so a Syrian refugee is translating the History of Germany podcast into Arabic. So it's called Tarikh Alemania, and that's going to be available January 1st on.
That's really cool.
And so the way that he pitched it to me was, I want to help. So he's in Cairo, and he's like, I want to help Syrians in Germany figure out where they are, you know, who they're dealing with, if they want to integrate better, you know, to help them out. And I'm like, cool. And then the podcast is in English and German, and I'm rewriting it for the Arabic version, so it's a little bit shorter. It's a little bit more concise to that audience. We'll give them like advice. Like, I was in Germany, I got work permit and visa, and I did the same thing in Czech Republic. And, you know, we'll try to give like real world advice on how to learn German, how to, you know, deal with the German bureaucracy. But yeah, so I mean, you just reminded me that, like, no, I actively would encourage, you know, Syrian, you know, people letting in Syrian refugees into countries, because the Syrian culture is just one of the oldest on the planet. You could do a lot worse than letting in Syrians. You know, to be afraid of that is ridiculous. That's
and also,
just,
by the way,
wow.
people also people tend to forget that one of the like for extra people, I have to remind them that Antioch, one of the most holiest places in Christianity and one of the you know, seats of Pentarchy, was in Syria.
That's right.
And that you have a bunch of Christians in Syria too, like a lot of them, and that they're not all Muslim, and
even,
that
you know,
Syrian.
Yeah, even Muslim culture. I'm like, people are missing out
history.
if they're not curious about Arabic, you know, Islam and Iranian, Persian, all that, you know. Listen to the history of alchemy. We talk about a lot of like Muslims from Persia and, you know, Arabia and all that stuff in the Middle Ages, because in the Middle Ages that was like the height of culture and mathematics and science and astronomy and all that. Like architecture, art, man, people are just not getting the picture if they're afraid of Syrians. They're just not understanding what they are. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing here, because again, I've understood, like, and by the way, Travis, you kind of opened my eyes about like all these anti-Fa movement, because, you know, I really, because I only had contact with it from the perspective in Russia and how the Russians use the term, I automatically applied it to what's going on in America. Then I looked into this, and yeah, I made an episode about this fact, because I looked into this.
So the Russians are applying the term really weirdly.
The Russians at this point are using the term fascist in their propaganda like all the time for like. In Russia, it basically means people, and you know what else is, like, and they're really disrespectful to like everything that has happened historically themselves, because you know that like Russia got left out from the Olympic Games, right, because of all their everything.
Yep.
Literally
everything.
But
yeah,
and you know
but,
their official like press, like their press guy from their Olympic committee equated this to genocide. Literally, he said this is actual genocide because it hurts the interests of one people.
Wow. Oh.
He literally said that the West are now committing genocide against Russians with this.
Yeah,
and so that's like.
So they're redefining words. Yeah. So now if they do commit genocide, like start killing Ukrainians
which they're
or something,
actually doing,
then later they'll say like, well, what? You know, Westerners committed genocide at the Olympics. What?
This is
This is
what they do.
Yeah, it's a redefining of words, and that's the scary part. I mean, that's like, you've read the novel, you know, 1984. and yeah, it's kind of like you redefine that does happen in real life. That does happen. The fact that Trump says CNN is fake news, no, they're he's redefining what fake news mean. He's making fake news real news and real news fake news, and that's scary too. Trump is smart. I mean, Putin is much smarter than that. Putin is a much better chess player than Trump, who's just, I think he can barely put his pants on in the morning.
When you speak about Putin, always remember that it's not that single man alone. You always have to speak about the collective Putin. Right.
Yeah. Whereas Trump really is probably just firing from the hip, single person, and he's not that smart, or maybe becoming senile in old age, or whatever. But Putin is more of a machine to reckon with.
Well, he's based on
there's a lot going on that we'll never know or never see.
He's based on the old KGB apparatus. But the thing is, think about I was ill for a whole week, and my listeners know I had this kind of, how was it, a fever nightmares episode, because I was really ill for a week, and 39 Celsius temperature all the time.
Jeez, yep.
And I watched Russian news, and I understood the facts from which Russians get fed in their national television and what they're afraid of.
God, it's scary, isn't it? Yeah, if you watch Russian today,
it is because in Russian television they basically state that in the West, gays will come, homosexuals and transsexuals will come to your kindergarten, and then they will tell your kids about how good it is to be gay. And then, they will incite the kids to all become gay.
Yeah, and I wonder, are people really afraid of that? Do you think? I mean, because my dad's pretty conservative, and he's Christian and all that. I think, or pretty fundamental Christian. And he does kind of have that in the back of his mind, he wouldn't want a gay teacher in school or something. And I'm like, that's crazy.
No, gay teachers.
But Russians...
Yeah, but gay teachers in school does not mean anything bad. But no, the Russians literally think that, they invite people from, gay communities to tell that the kids should be gay.
No, in Russia, that's seen as, yeah, they're coming in to try to brainwash the kids into... It's no, hopefully they're... Yeah, if there's a gay kid, then hopefully they're telling them it's okay to be like that and not...
Oh, no, they're not. I mean, Russia, not.
In Russia...
See, in America, you have court processes about this...
In Russia, you cannot be a teacher if you're gay. I mean, you can't... I don't think you can be openly gay these days.
Dude, in Russia, they have, in America, you had this huge court process...
Yeah,
you had this court process where this one person refused to bake a wedding cake for a gay wedding.
Oh yeah.
In Russia, it's perfectly legal, and in Russia, there was a person who fired his salesperson for selling Coca-Cola to a gay person. And he got away with it. He was celebrated on national television.
That's funny. Well, in Czech Republic, you could just get away with kind of thing. Yeah, in America, it's kind of weird that they even sued because someone didn't make them a cake. I mean, who cares? I would just go next door. But yeah.
Do you want a cake, which is a wedding cake, which is a huge... It's an artistic thing because it's a wedding cake, okay? And if you, would you want... to get an artistic project, your wedding cake on your very special day, from someone who doesn't like you?
Exactly, from someone that doesn't even want to make it. No, yeah, exactly.
You better go to someone who does like you and makes a good cake.
Exactly.
Even if you force him to make your cake, he's gonna make it really bad.
Yeah, or something. Sabotage it somehow. If you have to go to court for it, it's not gonna end up being a nice cake. So.
Yeah, that is the thing, because People these days kind of like to solve a lot of their disputes in courts and whatever, but everyone just keeps forgetting that even the people who have a completely different worldview from yours, or have different values, that they're still people, and there are qualities that we all people share. For example, terrorists and actually people who want to kill other people, those people, they are an extreme minority.
Yeah.
Your average person does not want to kill any other average person.
That's right.
I don't know. I probably wouldn't even be able to kill
there.
anyone.
Okay, that's right. There are.
Ew.
This is one basic fact that everybody needs to know, so that they just stop freaking out about nothing. There are very, very few terrorists in the world. Okay, I don't know, a couple dozen, 100,000. Who cares? There's not that many out of 6 billion people. 6 to 7, 8 billion people, however many we are. The point is that they're located in a couple of regions, for one. And even if you do end up going to the Middle East, like Egypt or Israel or, someplace or Iran or whatever, the chances are it's just ridiculously small for, even a terrorist attack in London or Paris or Berlin or whatever. It's just such a small probability that's going to be you. And the point is that that's the whole thing. That's the whole point. They're called terrorists because they want to invoke terror. They do these tiny little acts. Maybe one person dies, maybe 10 people die. Maybe it's, sure, those are horrible tragedies. But they cause fear, they cause terror in millions. And every time that happens, terrorists win. And the fact that I have to take off my shoes in an airport means terrorists won. The fact that I have to get that special 3D scanner in the airport, terrorists won. The fact that I have to show up to airports 2 hours early, I would rather have the risk of exploding mid-flight than take off my shoes every time at the airport. Okay? Like if it was up to me, I would say fire the whole TSA and Homeland Security, just instantly get rid of all of them. And I'll take my chances, because that's my, like, if I have the freedom, it's like, you know what? That's not going to happen to me. Like, it's just not, we still have, keep the explosive sniffing dogs. Okay. That's, if there's actually a bomb on the plane, we'll know about it. I don't care about a razor blade. They lock those doors now. 9/11 can't happen again. So just, get me on my plane a half hour earlier, or let me show, terrorists are one and one and one. And that's why life gets more and more and more annoying. That's why Trump closes down the borders. And that's why Trump has the travel ban. That's not Trump winning. That's terrorists winning every time. Building a wall to Mexico because we're afraid of Mexican cartels or drugs. That's such nonsense. Like, that's just fear, and I just can't, like, oh, it's so annoying. Like, people being afraid impacts my life, okay? Because I can't travel to the places I want to travel, like Iran or Russia or, those kind of places, because, or African countries are getting harder and harder. Every month that Trump's in power, I'm gonna need visas for more and more countries. So other people's fear is impacting my life, and I'm really sick of it. And fake news and those crazy people in the bar that are just spouting that nationalistic crap and fear, they're winning. And why? It's because people are listening, and it's just like, wake up. Don't be afraid for no reason. If you read an article and it makes you scared, that's the first red flag, okay? Even if it comes from fucking BBC or the CNN, it doesn't matter. If they're exaggerating some terrorist attack and it makes you scared, that's on them. And that's not fake news, but that's wrong. That's, the media has a
journalists will exaggerate things to get more
exactly.
sales.
That is like sensationalism.
That's what
and now it's come to, whole articles are made up. Sure. I mean, I get that. And it's not the same thing as like CNN exaggerating or something. But always just, if something makes you afraid, then it's like, wait, stop. Why? That doesn't, I'm not really afraid of foreigners, am I? No. I'm not really afraid of Muslims, am I? No. Like, it doesn't really, or I'm not afraid that someone's going to turn my kid gay. What? Either they're gay or they're not, and either way, they'd be accepted in my family. That just has no impact. Like, what are people actually afraid of? The chances that you're going to die of a terrorist attack in Latvia is basically zero.
We have had zero terror attacks.
I think
here.
Prague.
Zero school shootings either. Zero mass murders. Zero mass shootings
Prague,
in general.
Yeah, I was going to say the one
disasters.
real threat was about 20 years ago, and it probably hasn't happened since, and that was the Russian mafia. Yes, there were shootings. There were fully automatic pistols in the streets, but then it also stopped.
Early 90s.
Yeah, early 90s,
yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And since then, but no, not the Syrians coming in. Like, the refugees coming in are just trying to find work, and they're trying to learn Czech, and they're trying to fit in, and and they're mostly in villages. They're not even in Prague. you know. So it's yeah, it's just, from what I've seen, it's just ridiculous. People are afraid of losing their jobs. Well, if it was easier to move overseas, you can move overseas and get your job back, you know. Like rent would be cheaper and you could live in India for a couple of years. I don't know, but it's just, you know, people are like, what are you afraid of? It's not worth you know, voting in these populist parties and these, you know, Russia's case, fascists. I mean, Putin's a full-on fascist. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, man, you know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of random checks in the airport, because when I came back from Berlin, you know, we were there for a week because I had beard back then as well. They called me for a random check after I got patted down.
I'm so sick of that crap.
And then they swiped my kind of bag, and I later figured out it's their explosive check. And the first test from their machine came up positive. So then, like, six guys arrived from security, and 2 guys who are like cops with like shotguns and like their Kevlar vests, and they asked me all about what I was doing in Berlin.
Shit.
What was my profession? Was everything? Do I work with chemicals? But then the second swipe came out okay, but that was like. That was scary, because like all of my baggage was like just looked at. I got swiped, I got patted down twice, and the guy was like putting on his like I think they were planning for a cavity check when the second test for explosives came up negative, and they let me go because I was like an EU citizen. But that was scary. And you know who did this to us? Fucking terrorists, man.
Exactly. It's fear. It's fear of terrorists. We're giving our freedoms away. That's right. If I had the freedom to choose, I would choose getting on a plane without going through security every time. And that means I would choose the risk.
Terrorists each year?
Huh?
Cows.
Oh yeah.
Cows kill more people each year than terrorists.
Yeah, falling off a ladder kills more people than terrorists. It just, you know, that doesn't make the news. International news: 3 people killed by cows in Kazakhstan. You know, that's about the same impact media should have as a terrorist attack. But no, you know, oh, some guy in Hamburg, you know, ran over 3 people with a truck. You know what? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That's local news, and it sucks for them. I mean, it really, you know, that's a tragedy locally. But what are you going to do? More people drowned every month than have ever been killed by terrorist attacks in the whole history of mankind. So who cares? You know, why be afraid of that?
Do you know who are the people who are most killed by terrorist attacks each year? Like 70 or 80% of them.
Well, they're all in Israel for one. I mean,
not in Israel. They're around Middle East because they're all Muslims. Because
it's probably Muslims against Muslims. That's right. Yeah,
Shia and Sunni people.
Yeah,
you know what?
It's probably
not like Catholics
right now.
and
It's probably Yemen, and before that it was Somalia, and before But right now
we have civil wars in
That's
Syria,
right.
Libya, and we have wars in Yemen.
Yeah.
They're killing each other all the time.
Syria
because
is
of their own religious differences. And it's like, and this is where I kind of want to throw the blame to some European countries as well, because do you know why we have a civil war like in Syria and why we had troubles in Iraq? Because after World War I, and this was by Daryl Cooper, whom you don't agree with in a lot of respects, but he has a point in like a lot of places. But Daryl specifically stated that hey, after World War I ended and Ottoman Empire collapsed, it was just split up by Britain and France. Right. Not according to any ethnic lines, but due to hey, we have this oil well there and that there.
Yes.
And then they put like mixed ethnicities in countries and put minorities in control, so that hey, well, the minority Shias will oppress the majority Sunnis, so the Sunnis will hate the Shias, and Shias will be thankful to us for keeping them in power. And that happens in Iraq, another place they put.
Saudi Arabia is going through another family putsch right now.
Which they have like Wahhabites in it.
Yeah.
Because the imperial powers of early 20th century just splitting up the countries in their modern day maps as they are now, that was as unnatural as humanly possible. Because I for one am for like I don't know. I think they should just quit being in those borders. Even though United Nations took the resolution of like unchangeability of the borders, that is nonsense, because those borders are not cut like by any natural lines, or where actually like the Iraqi people live here, and then the Kurd people live here. Nothing like that. They're
yeah,
just
if the borders
things.
didn't matter so much, if getting a passport, because some minorities might be, why does that even matter? Why does a border matter? Because it doesn't really, but some minorities, or it shouldn't, but it totally does, because some minorities might be denied passports, and now. You have some people that don't want to be in that state or whatever, and now they can't leave the state. Again, it just kind of it just comes back to like, why do we even have like? I hate borders. You don't even know how much I've bled and waited in line and paid for a stupid visa. I've almost been abducted. Like the story. I've almost been abducted by Russian separatists in Moldova. I was interrogated in a Soviet era interrogation room.
Did you go to Transnistria?
Yeah, I've been through Transnistria. Yeah.
Oh God, that
and
place
I live
is
to
another
tell the
place
tale.
where Russians should just should just go the fuck.
They were
away
like wearing
from
Soviet Union uniforms and telling us to leave the train and stuff. Like, and then when we made it through there, then we were interrogated by the Moldovan authorities because then we didn't have a visa. And we were stuck there for 3 days. I had to go to court. We had to go to the US embassy, like like in that case, thank God I had a US passport granted, because we instantly got like VIP service, got a translator, we got a chauffeur, we were driven around Chisinau, in a Chevy Silverado, like king cab, like leather seats, with a translator and a police escort. And okay, that's cool. But I still had to deal with that drama in the first place. Like I was still interrogated, and they thought we were Russians because we had a Cyrillic map. And Transnistrians just wanted to extort money from us. Like Transnistrians were the Russians, and the Moldovans thought we were working, or, it was just like, I hate that. We didn't even go to see what we wanted to see in Romania, because then we just got on an airplane and came back to Prague. I lived in the Czech Republic for 10 years. I never made it to Russia because the visa process is I just never wanted to deal with it. I would love to go to St. Petersburg. It's just too much of a hassle.
Me too.
It's just too much of a hassle. So,
well, hey, I can't go because I'll get arrested.
Well, yeah, you might be a little different. I might be headed that way. I don't know. I might be on a secret list that I don't know about. But
take pictures and send them back.
Yeah. No, but visas just I lived as an illegal immigrant for a year in the EU. I had to stand in line.
Oh no!
Even after living in Germany for 10 years, I still had to. When I came back the last year, I still had to like go back and stand in line at 7 a.m. for Arbeits like work permit, and then you have to like register where you live, and this bureaucracy and that bureaucracy. And I just hate that. I'm not libertarian, I should say. I'm not like anti-government by any means.
40% of my listeners are, which is interesting because 40% of Eastern Board listeners are libertarians.
You had a poll or something?
How do you
know this? How do you even know this?
I have this poll on
That's
the
cool.
webpage,
Yeah,
which is like the webpage poll, which is like kind of doing things. But the thing is, 40% of my listeners are libertarians because I was on Tom Wood's show too, and I had a transgender libertarian on this show. So 40% are libertarians, 30% are conservatives, and 30% are Democrats. Thing is, I encourage political discussions, so I made very specific rules about how to discuss things, because obviously, at one point, I can understand doing things, but you know what? You can discuss politics.
Yeah.
But be fucking polite, please.
Right. I don't want to say like, I don't. Well, I mean, I just don't. I'm not anti-government, so I don't want to. I think libertarians. My opinion is that that's kind of naive. Like, you still need, but I don't believe in national. If you want to run things on a local level and then on a global level, let's say, cool, I'd be fine with that. But then I'm not libertarian though, because I still believe in government, local government and at least like regional and global government. Like leaving the Paris Agreement, I still can't believe we did this crap like that.
You know what would be cool, really? I think you know what, if
UNESCO. I think we left UNESCO.
A huge. Dude, I think what would be cool is that if the world would consist of a huge bunch of city-states. You know what? If we would just be split up in
city-states, counties.
City-states.
City-states that run a county. Yeah, sure. I'm okay with that. still, if you need funding for like space projects, you need funding for like international travel and airlines, and so you need.
Hey, Elon Musk is taking care. By the way, Elon Musk is now the second most hated person in Russia.
You need oversight. You need oversight because Elon Musk could be the next monopoly or the next. You still need, Wall Street. Now we know Wall Street left alone without government is not a good idea. We just know this. It's a historic fact. So you still need oversight to run, like, even if you had it. So if you had city-states, cool. Okay, now we're talking sci-fi, buddy. Like, now you're. But if we had city-states, that's awesome. But at some point,
it's the
you'd still have
episode. We can talk.
There
about
you go.
whatever.
Okay, you'd still have
my show, my rules.
But these are
Fuck
okay.
It, sci-fi.
These are still free market city-states, right? Like, you're still doing free trade. You don't believe in tariffs.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at that point, you still need some kind of oversight because there'd still be stocks and bonds. There'd still be a financial market, and you just can't have all that unchecked. You'd still need some sort of thing again. Like, what about currency and arbitrage and all that kind of thing? Like, you'd need some governing body.
I know, but I just personally, as a political system, I've lately been gravitating towards to something that like Venice
but I'd be okay with that, yeah.
Or like early Roman Republic.
God, I live in Silicon Valley, dude. It's a total city state. I mean, from San Francisco to like the whole Bay Area, 7 million people, but it's this whole ecosystem. We trade with Los Angeles and Las Vegas and Oregon, but it's like, man, this place as a region is an economic powerhouse. Like, sure, why not?
No, see, I would like a system where, like, in modern day, like, there are a lot of people, like, everyone can vote now, okay, but a lot of people just don't understand how much of value that is, that people actually, stood and died for your
exactly
right to vote.
Right.
We didn't have it,
yeah.
And the fact is that people have forgotten how valuable it is, this right to vote. And, I don't like the idea that a bunch of people don't get to vote in, like, Venetian system or ancient Roman system, but I just like the idea that people actively participate in their government, and that being a citizen and having this right to vote, that's a value in people's minds. I like the idea.
I'm
like
still a
very politically conscious.
I still believe in democracy. That's for sure. Yep.
No, sure. I also believe in democracy. I would just like people to think like. I would like people to have more political consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, that election days would be like, celebration.
Yeah.
Go
election day should be a holiday. Like a celebrated holiday.
In Latvia, it is a holiday, by the way. Elections always happen on
and
Sundays,
it should be,
Latvia.
okay, yeah, and it should be like the day before should be like an education day where you could go and listen to free lectures about which, what bills and everything. Cause I just, I don't like research. Even if I do vote, I don't research all the things that I check. I'm just like, raise my taxes. I'm sure it's for a good cause, and just fill it in and post it. And local.
Dude, raising your taxes? I guess your taxes were just like, I don't know. You work in Silicon Valley.
Oh,
what did the latest Trump bill did to you?
My taxes my taxes were already too low and they got lowered again just now. So it's not okay. So in Silicon Valley, I should say
that means you can afford to send me to America now.
Probably.
Okay.
I think my taxes got significantly lowered since Trump has been elected, which is a really bad thing.
Sir, you are the only American whom I have ever spoken to who says, "Oh no, Josh Gully, I have too much money."
No, definitely I should be taxed more so I'll tell you why. Let me finish my sentence, dude.
because you've lived in Germany and in Prague.
No, because in Silicon Valley we have hundreds of thousands of homeless people, tens of thousands for sure. But some of the largest populations of homeless in the world, in the US, maybe not the world, but definitely the US. It's ridiculous. There's whole camps of hundreds of homeless in tent cities, and they go from place to place. And yet the national salary or the average salary in Silicon Valley is ridiculous. And then now we're lowering taxes for the top, for the richest kind of parts of society, even in California, even here. It just makes no sense at all. It just makes no sense at all. We have the worst class system probably in the United States, as far as if you're a techie, then you're Europe's nobility. You can just do whatever you want. You can start a new business. You can buy whatever car you want and buy a house. And if you're not a techie, Well, rent is $3,000 a month, my friend. So what are you going to do? You're going to make that much money working at McDonald's? No, you're going to have 5 roommates. It's just the worst. This is America. Like I've lived in Germany. I've lived in Czech Republic, which used to be communist. I've never lived in any place as bad as Silicon Valley, as far as like inequality and just like fucked upness of social situation, lack of welfare, lack of medical insurance for the poor. Just this, it's not a third world country. This is, I mean, it's the very rich but it's like a very corrupt sort of society. You have the very rich and the very poor living door to door. Like the next thing is a revolution, or, I better start installing bars on my windows because,
if you want advice on revolution.
Yeah, I've never lived at any place that was so bad, socially speaking. Like, it's just crazy to think like this is this is the United States, and they think and they're so proud of where they are, and it's like, oh my god, this place is horrible. This is no, my taxes are way too low, and they've been getting lowered. Is my point.
Do you know what's the worst thing about like your tax system? A lot of people, like from the Republican side mostly, and from the right in general, they say, "Oh no, social healthcare welfare stuff, that's communism." And then I want to laugh at them because that's something Bismarck invented to prevent communism. Yeah. Bismarck invented people getting pensions.
People confuse a totalitarian state like the Soviet Union and that word communism, which means state-controlled market communism, with social democracy, which is like, no, dude, we got to take care of, like, if I get fired, I still want health insurance, okay? Like, I got to take care of myself. It has nothing to do with...
It's the basic thing.
I still believe in free market. I still believe in democracy. I'm just definitely... Yeah, if you want to put me in a box, then I'm definitely a social democrat. I wouldn't say I'm a socialist, but I'm totally a socialist. I'm totally a socialist. Oh my god.
The government can spend money on two things, okay? The government can either give a lot of money to the cops to fight crime, or instead, government can give social welfare to poor people.
Which is what really needs to,
Americans have chosen to give money to cops. We
prisons.
In Europe,
we've decided to build prisons.
Poor people.
So you get poor, but if you step out of line, you get thrown in jail. You don't get help. You don't get a job. You don't get an apartment or food. You just get thrown in jail.
Because you're doing something criminal. But the problem is, social welfare costs less, way less for society, and is much more efficient, and creates positive
Czechs
social
have figured
effects.
that out. Germans have figured that out. Every place I've lived figured that out, except for the U.S. I don't understand.
Yeah, we all figured out the fact that we would rather have less policing and less crime, and we would rather help out people who are poor. Just because, everyone needs a safety net now and then. I mean, you can fail as a businessman.
Lower my rent and raise my tax. Like, if there was some kind of rent control or something, that would be nice, because my rent is ridiculous. And, raise my taxes and lower my rent, and I'd be twice as happy. Because that way, even if I lost my job or something, I would still be able to stay where I live. If I lost my job, I'd be homeless the next month. I mean, it's, there is no security net. There is if I don't have personal savings or my own social security kind of like 401ks, it's just from top of the world to bottom of the world in one paycheck. Like, it's just, instantly lose everything. It's just ridiculous.
And you know what other mistake people make often, like these same people who think that taxes are like communism and stuff. They also think, for example, I am not for huge government regulations on things, because large companies like to do aggressive regulation policies to throw off their smaller competition out of the market. So very aggressive government regulation on various issues can be also a very bad thing. I am all for free market and honest competition, and I'm all for government regulation as long as it stops monopolies.
There's some middle ground, case by case basis. Like, you do want companies to get bigger, and you do want companies to have economies of scale and all that, but you don't want a situation like we have right now with the cable companies. And we're about to lose net neutrality, and that means we're all about to potentially go offline, because that might kill podcasts. Have you thought about that? Like, I don't want to be a pessimist here, but
I am totally fighting for net neutrality,
all
man,
podcasters are. We all understand
over here
that,
in Latvia,
that might be the end of all of our little fun hobbies or careers, even.
In America, internet works differently, as far as I know, because I heard complaints, for example, that you can only like choose from Comcast or whatever.
Yeah, it's
like,
a monopoly
one other
here.
Comcast and one other thing. Yeah, over here, I pay for my internet to a small, like, like in German, like imagine in Berlin, my provider provides only for the Mitte region, for example.
Yeah.
And nothing else. Like in Latvia, we have like the big Lat Telecom provider, but then we have a ton of minor, like smaller providers. Because by Latvian law,
Czechs did, and they get protection because Czechs did, and they all just got bought out by bigger and bigger. And now in Czech Republic, and like if you move in to an apartment in Prague, your apartment will just have like Telecom or O2 or whatever, and they can't change it because the box, you're sharing internet with like your neighbors, kind of thing. So it ended up being either you were one or the other, but it ended up being a monopoly, or kind of oligarchy in the same way. Latvia, that's interesting. If they're protecting the small ISPs, that's cool.
Yeah, we have like we have a bunch of small ISPs, yeah, because in Latvia, like fast internet and that is the only thing we have. So we're working very kind of heavily on this. I don't know. I would in general see. I believe it's the government's job to protect people from large corporations.
Right.
Because there are people who hate the government, there are people who hate large corporations. Well, I am more on the side that I dislike large corporations.
I know
slightly more than I dislike.
Which one's
aggressive
scarier?
Government.
Is the Google of tomorrow that knows everything about you, records everything you say, every room has a video, and everything's just being monitored? Is that scarier than the government? Like that's our worst case scenario is the government does that to us. Companies, we're doing it to ourselves. How many, we used to like the James Bond movies with the rooms being bugged. That doesn't make any sense anymore in 2017, where literally I have like 4, wireless enabled microphones in my, I'm looking around me right now. There's like 3 microphones plugged in that, you could just hack into, turn on, and 4, 5, just right now in ear range. So definitely.
Not counting the webcam, which someone also can hack.
Oh yeah. Like I know that because of my. I don't want to talk about my day job, but I work in public safety in Silicon Valley. So if you do not put stickers over your laptop camera, you're making a huge mistake, my friend. If you think that your webcam is safe and private and secure, you're wrong. You need to put your webcam facing the wall and stickers over all cameras. No, I'm not paranoid. God damn it. Just do it. Just trust me and thank me later.
This
you're welcome.
This is also good advice. This is a really, especially if you ever want to use the Tor browser, which can take you to the deep web, which is a real thing. Don't go to deep web if you don't know what you're looking for. Very serious advice. Secondly, if you go to deep web and you have a webcam, remove it from your computer, or if you have a laptop, glue it up. Extremely serious, useful advice.
Microphones, I think anything in my room, can be heard. I just assume that anything I say out loud in front of a microphone these days, because even my phone in my pocket, I know it can get hacked. I'm not that naive. Apple, it's an Apple device. And I know that, people could just turn that on and listen to it. So, guys, people, you're surrounded by microphones and cameras. It's 2017.
Yeah, you should be afraid of that instead of random.
Don't be worried about terrorists because we live in a world where Amazon, Apple, and Google know every single thing about me. If they wanted to destroy me, they could do way more harm to me than any terrorist ever could.
Dude, I have a listener who works for IT, and he informed me that essentially every question to Alexa or Siri, which by the way uses the same database behind it, it's just different voice. Just saying. But those things all get recorded, and there are real people behind there who listen to your Siri requests to find out if you're dealing drugs, because those things do get recorded. I got that from a listener who works in a company who services
probably
the
if you
database
read
Siri
the fine
and Alexa
print, it
are
probably
using.
says it. Like, for quality assurance, we might do voice monitoring or something, and that means there's a real person listening to a real question.
That is why if you can, take your phone, like open up your search.
And you probably clicked "I agree." And
no, just open up Siri and just tell them something fun like I know you're listening to me, CIA, or something of that.
Oh God, I think I do that on my podcast.
I do too, because you know what? I was really surprised when I found out, ACOS gives you these...
They answered?
No, ACOS gives you statistics, right? You use ACOS too, you know how that works. And,
right.
and I looked city by city statistics, and then I found out that the Eastern border is most focused, listeners per
like
is
Langley. Yeah.
It's like, great. I don't know, if you're listening to me, CIA, and there you are, where's my sponsorship money? Come on, you guys.
Seriously, yeah. Where's the support funds? Yeah, you should get government sponsored. See, if we had a little bit more of a socialist system, you'd get a government grant for. I tried to, this public service
the
you
thing
do.
Thing is, we have in Latvia, we have this Latvian Institute, of course, supposed to do what I'm doing, but nobody knows what podcasting is in Latvia. So I contacted them, and they didn't take me seriously at all. I'm like, oh well, what? That'll change, hopefully. Eventually.
I still get, even for shows that I retired, there's more and more people listening all the time. So people are finding podcasts in general.
Yeah, but
finding history podcasts.
You know what's my worst part about the old shows is that, I made some small mistakes in the early days of my show. When I was...
Oh, hey. My German was horrible in the early German episodes.
Dude, for example, I made a terrible mistake in, in episode 4, I think, and I said that the Miracle on Ice happened between Canada and the USSR, which I fixed on episode 5, because that was it wasn't even in the script, it was just, I was extremely nervous.
You just said it. Yeah.
And it's like, you wake up every day, and you look at your mails, and there's once a week someone writes to you about the Miracle on Ice. Thanks. I should probably read the episode.
I think I still have. I have a couple of emails or tweets from episodes that are just 2 years old, and I'm like, God, stop it. Yeah, I know. You could go back and fix it, but I'm just, it's like, guys. It's 5 years ago. Let it go.
Fixing it is a huge issue. I don't know, because
it's such a pain.
I'm gonna have some real trouble, by the way, because I went and talked with Meduza.io, which are Russian independent journalists who, to keep their freedom of the press going, they moved to Latvia. All of them.
Okay.
And they recently opened and expanded their English page of the site, so you can read the real Russian opposition news in English. So I went and interviewed them, and then I spoke with a Ukrainian guy who's an actor who was in Russian cinema a lot, and now he makes this he makes funny Russian news commentary, because he goes through Russian news and looks at the craziest stuff that has happened in Russia and talks about the Donbas war and stuff, another of those weird things. And I had interviews with both of them, and I recorded them. The problem is, none of them spoke good English at all, so we had this in Russian. So I now wonder what I'm gonna do, because I have two options here. And I can either and that episode is gonna come after this one, because I have to figure out what I'm gonna do. Because I can either translate everything word by word, then put it on YouTube and put on subtitles, or I can just retell what happened on the interviews and maybe put on the original
I've done
one.
that, because it's just
crazy.
Okay, I'll tell you what I do, because I've done that a dozen times now. I'll interview somebody in German for Geschichte der Deutschen, and then I still have the English version, and I'm like, well, sometimes I interview people twice in two languages if they're a good friend and they want to sit around for, I'm like, can you say that again in German? But usually what I do is I just play 3 seconds of the audio. I'm like, all right, so I did a interview, but it was in Russian, so it sounded like this, and then I fade out, and you basically dub over yourself, and you say, and then they answered, and you just kind of summarize what they say. You just,
oh god, I have 2 hours.
I know. You know what? But make an hour episode out of it. Kind of. You summarize it, leave out the unimportant parts. But
first thing they taught me in the newsroom: kill your loved ones. That's the first rule of journalism. It's called that way because we all have our each favorite words and favorite expressions, and then you write an article, and then you have to reread the article and just mercilessly cut out every of your favorite expressions, such as, and then he said, favorite ways to say, like, all these and stuff. Mercilessly cut that stuff out. That's called killing your loved ones.
Well, there you go. Slang. Yep.
We've given real advice to people in this episode and talked about lots of stuff.
I hope so. Great. People want to live in city-states now.
Well,
people are thinking, but if we live in city-states, how are they going to have international internet? Well, see, there's still to be treaties and global agreements. All right, let's go do it, people. Revolution.
See, the thing is, we already have, like, global treaties. We already live, like, in...
Yeah.
I don't know... Like, United States is an exception, but you're, like, a very huge country. But if you look at the average size of the countries, they're pretty small, actually. They're not that big. But yeah, I don't know. The most important thing is, like, the message of the show, as always, is never forget that other people are actually people.
Yeah. Don't be scared.
People like to brand other people as, like, I don't know, liberal, conservative, is like Muslim.
Yeah.
Or Sikh,
but what are you afraid of? Who cares? What if they are conservative?
First and foremost,
or Muslim
everyone's
or
human.
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly. Stop branding people in silly groups. Then things will get better.
You're not going to die of a terrorist attack. You, dear listener, you. That's right, you. You will not die of a terrorist attack. Ever.
You might die from a cow.
You might die from a... That's true. You know what? That's good advice. I think you might die... Dear listeners, the point of today's episode is you could die from a cow. Be careful. Cows are dangerous. If you're going to be afraid of something, be afraid of cows.
Be afraid of cows. You know what? That's a great final note. I'm going to put this in the show notes. This is excellent. Let's finish this with the fact that, dear listener, if you're going to be afraid of something, be afraid of cows.
'Cause cows kill. All right.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.